What does it feel like to be the crush of 5 rich heiress daughters at the same time? I've done it before, although I was only a stand-in for their crush, but that didn't stop them from projecting their feelings onto me, then sending me money in huge amounts, asking me to have a relationship with them, and I also did my job diligently and cautiously. Terrified they might discover each other's existence, I even prepared a separate phone for contacting each of them, until one day, their real crush was about to return to the country. I smiled. No. I tearfully accepted their enormous breakup payments, and prepared to perform the final farewell scene perfectly. But who would have thought that when it was the last heiress's turn? All 5 of my phones suddenly fell out of my pocket at the same time. When she saw the messages popping up on the screens calling me baby and dear, her face instantly darkened. I was speechless. Doing this job really means you need to buy better quality pants. Chapter 1. Today was the last day of my life as a kept boy. After happily blocking the 4th rich woman, I arrived early in the morning at the house of the 5th rich woman. First, I diligently made a loving breakfast for my rich patron. With a focused expression, I moved the food from the takeout boxes onto plates. Then, with equal seriousness, I destroyed the evidence of the packaging boxes. Mission accomplished. Darling, time to wake up. I came to see you today. Did you miss me? Rich woman number 5, Willow, wearing a black dress, opened the door lazily and elegantly. Leaning against the doorframe, she half closed her eyes and said, "Oh, who's this? If you stayed away any longer, I'd forget what you even look like." Hearing her slightly sarcastic tone, I felt a little guilty. Wasn't it because I'd already made enough money? Busy wrapping things up and visiting them one by one, it had been half a month since I'd last seen her. Chapter 2. But would I actually say that? Darling, do you know I almost got my leg broken just trying to come see you? I rolled up my pant leg and showed her the scrape I got yesterday when I fell off my bike. You clearly know that, yet you're still questioning me like this. Her gaze suddenly darkened as she quickly walked over to me. Trying to restrain herself, she pulled me into her arms, her hand unconsciously brushing over the wound. "I'm sorry, it's my fault." In her soft and fragrant embrace, I nodded vigorously, thinking to myself, yes, exactly, this is totally your fault. 5 minutes later, while Willow was treating my wound, I stared at the transfer on my phone and counted it over and over again. Hiss-ha, 10, 100, 1,000, 10,000, 100,000, million, 5,200,000. I've made enough. This time I've really made enough. After sitting for a while and getting tired, I changed my posture and started admiring my account balance instead. I didn't notice the phone sticking halfway out of my pocket, or the message popping up on it. At first, Willow only glanced at it casually and didn't care, until the corner of her eye caught a few words on the screen. "Baby, please add me back." Her eyes snapped toward it instantly, staring fixedly at the word baby. The light in her eyes grew darker and darker. She knew that my parents always called me Gio. Without making a sound, she took out her phone, unlocked it, and opened WeChat. When she saw the lines of heartfelt messages in the friend request column, her breathing suddenly became heavier. The newest one was from yesterday. "I love you, but I'm so tired. Let's end this." Chapter 3. George. A piercing scream jolted me awake. I looked up in panic and met Willow's eyes, burning with anger, and in her hand was a blue phone. Wasn't that number 4's? How did she know my password? I shot to my feet and reached to snatch the phone back. "Darling, listen to my explanation." It was obvious Willow was already furious, but she still tried to steady her breathing. "Go ahead." She shifted slightly to the side, not letting me take the phone back. I forced down my panic. I couldn't lose control now. When I raised my head again, my eyes were filled with nothing but sincerity, plus my ultimate cheating weapon, tears. "You know my parents don't approve of me being with you. They arranged this blind date for me to keep them from finding out. I pretended to chat with this person online. All of that is fake. I've never even met her." As I spoke, I paced slowly, inching closer to Willow while secretly reaching for the phone. I couldn't tell whether Willow believed me or not. Honestly, even I knew the story sounded ridiculous. Only when I got closer and saw she didn't resist did I finally breathe a sigh of relief. "Darling, you have to believe me. The only person I love is you. Everything with her is just an act, just for our future together." Although I never understood why this rich woman was always asking me for a title and a future. Maybe she thought a kept boy like me should devote himself completely to the job. Seeing that in the next second I was about to pull her into my arms and switch to the gentle persuasion strategy. Bang! A crisp sound suddenly rang out, stopping me in my tracks. I stiffly lowered my head in shock. When I saw the yellow phone that had fallen onto the floor, my pupils practically exploded. Before I could react, the phones in my pocket began dropping out one after another. 2, 3, bang. Another sound. This time the phone in my hand slipped out as well because I couldn't hold it anymore. Willow stared at the phones on the ground, How many phones do you actually have? Chapter 4. Half an hour later, Willow sat across from me, her face so dark it looked like ink might drip from it, and on the table in front of her lay 5 phones, each a different color. I hunched my shoulders and didn't dare speak. In fact, I was already wondering whether my buddy would remember to call the police if I didn't show up later. Willow had finished reading all the chat histories on the 4 phones. The earliest one started 3 years ago. That was the first. After that, there was a new one every half year, until me, the last one from a year ago. And the funny thing is, I actually know all of them. George, you're really something. She suddenly let out a cold laugh. Why didn't you find another one for the second half of this year? I didn't dare say anything and lowered my head even further. In truth, I was muttering in my heart, because I already made enough money. Thinking about it made me grind my teeth. Damn it, what kind of terrible quality were these pants? Cut them off. A slightly tired voice came from across the table. I suddenly lifted my head, staring at her in disbelief. Cut them off. I'll pretend none of this ever happened. I opened my mouth but couldn't say anything. What the hell, was she crazy? Putting up with betrayal was one thing, but this was 4 people and she was still willing to tolerate it. I didn't even know what to say, but seeing how easygoing she seemed, I remembered the reason I came today. Originally, I planned to say my parents were forcing me to marry and use that as an excuse to break up with her, but now, it might be better to just come clean. It's already over. Ignoring how Willow's eyes suddenly lit up, I continued. We should end things too. Anyway, there wasn't really any real feelings. The second half of the sentence never came out, because Willow had already stood up, her gaze suddenly fierce and terrifying, as if in the next second she might devour me alive. Only now did it seem like she was truly angry. Chapter 5. Seeing her walk toward me step by step, I immediately turned and bolted. Even though I knew I definitely wouldn't be able to escape, buying even a little time was still better than nothing. Just as the situation grew more and more tense, right at the critical moment when everything could explode, the doorbell rang. My eyes lit up instantly. I'll get the door. Ignoring Willow's reaction, I hurried toward the door. No matter who it is outside, the moment I open it, I'm slipping out and running. George, you dare run. The woman's furious voice came from behind me. I shivered a little, but still resolutely turned the doorknob. Obviously, only an idiot wouldn't run. What an idiot. My family would be stunned if they saw this. Standing outside the door were my first 4 rich sugar mommies. George. The 4 people outside blocked the doorway completely, grinding their teeth as they called my name in unison. I swallowed hard, then slammed the door shut, locked it, and turned around in one smooth motion. Not daring to meet Willow's eyes, I pulled her into my arms and said, "Well, you go deal with them." Willow almost laughed from sheer anger. How on earth was I so shamelessly confident asking her to deal with my 4 mistresses for me? She clenched her teeth, wanting to strangle me on the spot, but feeling the warmth of the person in her arms, she suddenly smiled. Sure, I didn't expect Willow to actually agree. She was way too easygoing. She really was a good person. Chapter 6. I take that back. She's a vicious woman. She actually let those 4 tigresses inside. Listening to them talk in what sounded like calm voices, they were discussing the personas I had presented to each of them. A hard-working and kind orphan who got into a prestigious university and works part-time to pay tuition. A poor kid from a broken family. His mom ran away with another man, and his gambling-addicted dad almost sold him off to Southeast Asia. A pitiful guy bullied since childhood. A social climber trying to break into high society. His parents died early, leaving him to raise his young sister all by himself. Willow glanced at me meaningfully and said, "An honest man from a strict family, whose parents oppose a mismatched relationship." The other 4 women all looked at her in shock. "Why is he different with you?" My lips moved but no sound came out, though it was obvious from my expression that I was swearing very viciously. "What are you cursing about? Let's hear it." A teasing voice rang out, and the others all looked over as well. I glared fiercely at the woman. She was my 3rd sugar mommy, Sophia, also the only one who knew that I had 2 sugar mommies before her, but she had clearly promised she wouldn't tell the others. Suddenly, a flash of realization struck my mind. You did this. After all, these pants seemed to be a gift from her. Sophia calmly hummed in agreement, the smile on her face deepening. Yes, I did. After all, who would have thought that later you'd go and find 2 more little sisters? She deliberately emphasized the word sisters. The smile in her eyes didn't reach them, making her look even more terrifying. Knowing her the way I do, she was definitely plotting something bad. I shivered, then decided to stop pretending altogether. Yeah, I lied to all of you. Do whatever the hell you want. Chapter 7. You can't blame me for being so fearless. Over the years, relying on the money I squeezed out of them, I secretly started my own company. By now, it has developed to the point where I can stand on equal footing with them. After saying those words, The tension I had carried in my heart for 3 years finally dropped away. Today, I would settle things with all these women once and for all. I can give you some compensation. As for the rest, I've already provided emotional support for you, haven't I? Ignoring their increasingly dark expressions, I continued. Besides, your crush is about to come back. Why keep clinging to me? Instead of wasting time on me, you might as well go try to please him. Sure enough, the moment I said that, 4 out of the 5 women lowered their eyes, clearly shaken by my words. Only Willow frowned and interrupted in confusion. What crush? Ah, hearing her ask that, I suddenly remembered. She seemed to be the only one among them who didn't have a crush. When I approached her in the beginning, it had actually been a misunderstanding. I thought she liked that person too. I only realized a few months ago that I had gotten it wrong. But she was so generous, more generous than the other 4 combined. For the sake of rapidly expanding my business empire, I couldn't bear to give that up. Feeling guilty, my eyes darted around as I covered my ears and said, I'm not listening. I'm just a substitute. Why make things so hard for me? Willow stood up speechlessly and was just about to walk over and shake my head to see if there was water sloshing around inside. Then the doorbell rang again. My eyes rolled for a moment, and I immediately turned toward the door. Goodbye, everyone. I opened the door, and fell silent again. George. That's right. Standing outside was my brother, and a whole group of police officers. Chapter 8. I was so moved that my eyes filled with tears, as expected of my dear brother. Wah. I opened my arms and gave him a huge bear hug, wailing. David, you finally came to save me. My brother's face was dark as he slowly looked over the 5 women present, the coldness in his eyes almost turning tangible. The leading police officer also stepped forward, standing protectively in front of us. Sir, don't be afraid. We're officers from the Orange District Public Security Bureau. If you're facing any trouble, you can tell us. I had already thought of a plan just now. With reddened eyes, I looked up toward Willow and the others. I shrank back in fear before quickly turning my head away. Officer. They're trying to force me to hand over my money. Otherwise they'll falsely accuse me of sexually harassing them. I practically shouted the last few words. It was enough to show just how utterly devastated I seemed. The moment the officers heard this, their expressions immediately changed. The officer who had been questioning me gave a signal with his hand, and within seconds Willow and the other 4 were restrained. If they wanted to resist, it would have been easy, but the ones restraining them were police officers, and the one who called the police was me. After the 5 women were taken to the police station, my brother and I finished giving our statements and went home first. Back at home, my brother sat down heavily on the sofa, crossed his arms, and began interrogating me. What was going on with those 5 people today? I scratched my head, still trying to make excuses. Well, they were trying to blackmail me. David's face remained stern. Tell the truth. I shuddered. My brother was angry. I didn't dare hide anything anymore and told him everything about my kept boy career in detail. After finishing, I looked at my brother's unreadable expression and swallowed nervously. It was all Sophia's fault. She was the one who exposed me. I had hidden it for 3 years, 3 whole years, and on the very last day, just when everything was about to end, it all blew up. Who was I supposed to complain to? George. Chapter 9. I jolted upright. Go ahead. I was done for. A massive wave of panic drowned me. After all, the thing I feared most was David getting angry. But the next second, David looked at me seriously. Are you hurt? Did they make you feel wronged? I froze for a moment, then realized what he meant. My heart immediately warmed. No, don't worry. I was very careful. I didn't even let them kiss me. I just didn't mention Willow. But that was an accident. Doesn't count. Doesn't count. Besides, I took so much money from them. How could I possibly feel wronged? I'm happy if anything. As I kept talking, I began getting smug again. I opened my phone and showed David my bank balance, my glorious achievements. Although my secret had been exposed rather suddenly, I was actually a little relieved. At least I didn't have to hide it from him anymore. One by one, I bragged to my brother about the empire I had built, explaining how I turned money into more money and eventually became one of the new rising elites of City A. Just as I was speaking nonstop, David suddenly said, "You did it for me." My mouth froze halfway open. Inside, I was collapsing in madness. What the hell was happening today? Why were my secrets being exposed one after another? If I had committed a crime, then please punish me by burying me under piles of cash, instead of exposing me 3 times in one single day. Seeing that I didn't respond for a long time, the usually strong-willed man suddenly had red eyes. He grabbed my shoulders, and the choked sobs in his voice made my heart ache. Only then did I finally find my voice. It's okay. I did it for myself too. By the time I finished comforting David, an entire hour had passed. After crying his heart out, David belatedly felt embarrassed and ran to his room to hide. I laughed so hard I nearly fell to the floor. After laughing, I finally had time to sort out my thoughts. I hadn't expected David to be so perceptive. Even though I had deliberately blurred the name of the company, he still guessed it immediately. I sighed. Actually, he wasn't wrong. At the very beginning, I really had done it for David. Chapter 10. Actually, the identities I fabricated for Sophia and the others weren't entirely false. They weren't that different from the truth. I was born deep in the mountains. My mom ran away, and my dad was a gambler. My childhood was indeed miserable, but I was smart. After realizing that I couldn't survive properly in that family, I seized an opportunity. I hid inside the cargo compartment of a truck belonging to a man from the village and eventually made my way to City A. At that time, I was only 7 years old. Looking back now, I admire the courage I had back then. If things had gone wrong and I had been trafficked away, I might have ended up worse off than staying at home. Fortunately, luck was on my side. After wandering around for a while, I ended up at an orphanage. I lied and said I had been abandoned by my parents. I claimed I didn't know anything, didn't know who my parents were, didn't even know my own name. Luckily, the checks weren't that strict back then. Once they confirmed that no one wanted me, I was successfully taken in by the orphanage. The orphanage had many kind sponsors. Life there was far better than life in that home. Because I was grateful for the help of the orphanage director, who was like a mother to us, I studied desperately hard. I hoped that one day I could succeed and become someone who could give back to the orphanage. I wanted the younger kids there to live better lives and be able to afford school. In middle school, I was admitted to the best key high school in the city. That was where I met the brother of my lifetime, David Chan. We became desk mates. He was the eldest young master of the Chan family in City A, showered with endless affection. I was a poor orphan with no parents from the orphanage. Although I personally didn't care, David was just too kind. He would carefully protect my fragile self-esteem, pretending to be arrogant and unreasonable while secretly giving me stationery and snacks. If I refused, he would say with a stern face, "If you don't want it, I'll just throw it away." How could I let him waste it like that? So the two of us started this awkward but sincere friendship, until that one time when several classmates bullied me and cornered me in the equipment room to beat me up. I had worked since childhood, so I was quite strong, but even then, I couldn't fight several people at once. Just when I was completely desperate and had nowhere to escape, David appeared. I'm not exaggerating. At that moment, when he kicked open the door of the equipment room, he truly looked like a god descending from the heavens. From that day on, my gray world finally had light. Chapter 11. That day, the two of us fled in a miserable panic. Only after we ran to the teachers for help was the situation finally resolved. The moment we saw the teacher, we looked at each other and smiled, then collapsed onto the ground together. I had never seen the young master look so disheveled before, but in my eyes, he had never looked cooler. After that, things between us were no longer awkward. To be precise, the young master was still stubborn with a soft heart, but I had already seen through his kindness. So I shamelessly inched closer to him step by step. We became brothers who could talk about anything. He supported me financially, and the two of us studied together all the way, getting into the best high school and later the best university. After graduating, I got a fairly decent job. I couldn't say I was wealthy, but I at least had enough to spare to help the younger kids at the orphanage. As I grew older, I clearly realized that without power or connections, climbing upward was extremely difficult. David wanted to help me, but I refused. I didn't want to step into the so-called upper class, a world completely unfamiliar to me. I liked this ordinary yet fulfilling life. I had the orphanage director who was like a mother to me, my best friend, and the younger brothers and sisters who weren't related by blood but were still family. Just when I thought life would continue peacefully like this, something happened to David's family. David's parents were sabotaged by their business rivals and were gravely injured, falling into a coma. The Chan family company was on the brink of collapse, teetering dangerously close to bankruptcy. As their only son, David had no choice but to shoulder the responsibility. At that time, he had only been working at the lowest level of the Chan family company for a year. During that period, David was extremely busy, watching him grow more and more exhausted every day, running everywhere for help, putting aside all his pride and dignity, yet still unable to secure a single investment. It hurt me to watch, but there was nothing I could do. Even if I gave him all my savings, it would only be a drop in the bucket. Later on, it seemed like David was about to reach his limit. His parents didn't make it. They passed away. During that time, I clearly noticed something was wrong with David. He began consolidating his assets, preparing bankruptcy procedures, and even arranging a way out for me. I knew what that meant. He didn't want to live anymore. One day, I caught him just as he was about to jump into the river to kill himself. I shoved him aside and jumped into the river myself, threatening him that if he still wanted to die, then I would drown myself first. He couldn't swim, so he ran back and forth anxiously along the riverbank. In the end, he cried and promised me that he would never try to take his own life again. I shivered in the freezing river for half an hour. After climbing out, I successfully ended up with a high fever and was hospitalized. I knew that sometimes things had to be completely broken before they could be rebuilt, so I chose such a drastic method. Chapter 12. The Chan family fell, but David Chan did not. I still took out all my savings and gave them to David, letting him start a business to reclaim everything that once belonged to the Chan family. At the same time, I clearly realized my own powerlessness. It was around that time that I heard a scandalous story circulating among the upper circles of City A. Apparently, the young ladies of the 5 most powerful families in City A were all in love with the same man. That man was outstanding, handsome and exceptional. He was the young master of a top-tier power even stronger than the Chan family, and he was the shared idol of those 5 women. Actually, I had heard David mention him before, but I hadn't paid much attention to it at the time. Later, I learned that their idol had gone abroad. The 5 women were heartbroken. Some of them were even beginning to consider finding substitutes. That was when an idea formed in my mind. After confirming that the 5 women only had one-sided crushes on him and that none of them had fiancés or boyfriends, I took action. With a face that bore about 30% resemblance and some deliberate styling, I successfully became the stand-in for the first rich woman, Maria. From the very beginning, I had already made a plan. No stand-in relationship with any rich woman could last more than 6 months. Quitting while ahead was always my rule, and I really did it well. Every 6 months I secured a new wealthy patron, and with a carefully balanced attitude of closeness and distance, I successfully kept my secret hidden. Aside from letting them hold my hand once in a while, I never allowed them to take advantage of me in any other way. If these women were willing to find substitutes in the first place, it already meant their love for that man wasn't entirely sincere. So there would always be moments when they were tempted by appearances. But whenever that happened, I would deliberately ask with a smug expression, "Have you fallen in love with me? Do you still love someone else?" The result was obvious. They would fall silent. And once again, I was safe. That was also why I limited every relationship to only 6 months. Using the money I received from these rich women, I began building my own career. Originally, I wanted to give everything to David, but on one hand, I didn't dare tell him. On the other hand, he would never accept it. I understood his pride, and I understood his stubborn determination. So I chose to start my own business. Unexpectedly, once I began, I discovered that I actually had some talent for it. My business grew more and more successful. David also gradually rebuilt his own career. Behind the scenes, I constantly arranged for my company to collaborate with David's, helping him while also strengthening myself. With abundant financial backing, my company developed rapidly. By the time Willow came along, my business was already on the rise. And since she was a little beautiful, a little generous, and a little kind, I ended up stretching the arrangement to a full year, until David finally fought his way back, sending his enemies to prison and settling the grudges of the past once and for all. I also upgraded the facilities of the orphanage so that every younger brother and sister there would have enough money to study all the way through university. I knew it was time for me to stop. So on the very last day, when I was preparing to destroy the 5 phones I had used for those relationships, my secret was exposed. Honestly, it was my own fault. I shouldn't have been greedy for convenience, thinking that that very day would mark the end of my 3-year career as a keptman. After finishing my recollection, thinking back on everything we went through, I still couldn't help but sigh. David and I really are incredible. Chapter 13. Knowing the police station wouldn't be able to hold those women for long, I sent them one final message on my phone to make things clear. This had always been a mutually beneficial arrangement. Don't come looking for me again. If you do, that would be rather rude. But I'm also someone who knows how to be grateful. After my business started taking off, I had people collect information about Makoto overseas. I knew those women wouldn't be willing to investigate themselves out of pride. That's fine, I could do it. I sent them detailed information, along with my guesses about Makoto's preferences, plus a few small suggestions for them. Then I withdrew gracefully after accomplishing my mission. This was exactly the kind of situation I had prepared for from the beginning. That should shut them up now, right? As for Willow, even though I knew Makoto wasn't her idol, I still sent the information to her. Consider it a thank you gift. Who knows, maybe she actually likes him too. I thought things would finally end there, but I seriously underestimated those women. The next day, Sophia showed up at my door. With a cold expression, I invited her to a cafe. Looking at the gentle and sweet mask on her face, I coldly told the waiter, "Hello, I'd like the most bitter iced Americano you have, and a latte with sugar and milk." The waiter looked slightly confused. "Sorry, sir, there isn't an option like that for iced Americanos. The bitterness is standardized." I nodded. That's fine. I was just talking nonsense. Actually, I just wanted to irritate Sophia, but she still wore a smiling expression, even a hint of indulgence in her eyes. I closed my eyes, feeling speechless. Come to think of it, among those 5 women, The others were all people I deliberately approached. Only Sophia was an accident. Chapter 14. She claimed she had approached me on her own. Before deciding to become a high-end professional keptman, I had already investigated all of them. To be honest, among the 5 women, Sophia was the one who felt the most dangerous to me. People like her are extremely calculating. If you're not careful, they'll bite you before you even realize it. I never intended to target her. The other 4 were already enough for me to profit from. But when I was preparing to approach the 3rd rich woman, Sophia suddenly appeared. You've been deliberately getting close to Maria and Alicia, haven't you? Planning to become Makoto's substitute. Who's next? She sat there just like this, legs crossed, each sentence turning my face paler. Let me guess, Willow, or Laura. Before I could even speak, she revealed her intention. You plan to act as each person's substitute for 6 months. Then why not do the same for me? I didn't want to agree, but she threatened me. She said that if I refused, she would expose everything. She would tell Maria and Alicia, and also the next 2 women I was planning to approach. That would completely cut off my source of income. At the time, I hadn't even established myself yet. If the first 2 found out, things would definitely end badly for me. So in the end, I swallowed my pride and agreed, and it turned out my original judgment was absolutely correct. Sophia was terrible as a patron. She demanded a lot, paid very little, and constantly mocked me. Not only did she force me to remodel myself to match Makoto completely, every word and every action had to follow a standard. She also made me run errands all the time, expecting me to be available whenever she called during the day. Thinking about it now, I was really working too hard back then. Even under those conditions, I still managed to grow my business. I felt sorry for myself just remembering it. At that thought, I couldn't help rolling my eyes at the woman sitting across from me. So tell me, what exactly do you want? Sophia didn't answer. She simply stared at me with a strange expression. The way she looked at me made my skin crawl. Just when my patience was about to run out, she finally spoke. I'll leave if you don't want to talk. Be with me. After she said that, my brain took a few seconds to process it. Then, once it registered, my pupils trembled. I shrank back in horror. Why you? What kind of nonsense are you talking about? Sophia's eyes darkened as she asked. Why not? If you want money, I can give it to you as long as you come back to my side. I was speechless. Sorry, but I don't lack money anymore. Sophia seemed surprised by my answer. But when she thought about the business I had secretly built, she understood. Why? You'll have to marry someone eventually. Why can't it be me? I rolled my eyes again. Please, who said I have to get married? And even if I did, there's no way it would be with you. Sophia still looked confused. Why? I took a deep breath, planning to explain things clearly. First, I never liked you in the first place. Second, you already have someone in your heart. Sophia relaxed slightly. Don't worry, I don't like Makoto anymore. You want me to feel relieved? My heart jumped straight to my throat. Don't tell me, you're about to say you like me. Chapter 15. Under my horrified gaze, Sophia slowly nodded. My expression immediately looked like I had just swallowed a fly. Sophia's fists clenched tightly. Give up already. There's no way I'm ever going to like you. I forced those words out with my face flushed red. Seeing her ugly expression after I said it felt incredibly satisfying. Sophia tried to ask something else, but I interrupted her. Let's not even talk about the fact that I don't like you as a person. Just one point is enough. Sophia's face darkened, but she was still curious about what I was going to say next. I didn't keep her waiting. You already had someone in your heart, yet you still went looking for a substitute. That disgusts me. I don't like people who are unfaithful about their feelings. After hearing that, Sophia finally understood. She left, and I finally let out a sigh of relief. When she first said she liked me, I was genuinely frightened, but afterward, I started to think it through. Someone like Sophia always puts interest first. Feelings are nothing more than seasoning. She liked Makoto because the Ito family is powerful, and Makoto Ito himself is outstanding. If the two families formed an alliance through marriage, she would gain a lot from it. Besides, who wouldn't like someone exceptional? Among the 4 women, Sophia had always been the least emotionally attached to Makoto. As for how she felt about me, maybe there was just a tiny bit of affection, though I still don't understand how she ended up liking me. But now that my business stands on equal footing with hers, it isn't completely unreasonable for her to turn back and pursue me. Still, what does it matter if she's willing? I have to be willing too. Although I had dealt with one of them, I had a feeling things weren't over yet. The others would definitely come looking for me. Sure enough, over the next few days, Maria, Alicia, and Laura all came to find me. Chapter 16. They were the typical type. When you're by their side, they find you annoying and tiresome. But once you're gone, they start missing you. On top of that, their real obsession had always been Makoto. Now that Makoto had returned to the country, when they spent time with him again, they realized the illusion they once had was gone. Only then did they realize the value of a devoted simp like me. That was why they came back hoping to rekindle things. I told them directly that everything before had been an act. All of it had been a performance I put on just to make money. They were left speechless. And just like that, those three were dealt with as well. Of course, during the process, Laura, the most stubborn of the group, even tried to force me into a relationship. I slapped her across the face and snapped her back to reality. If it had been before, I might not have had any way to resist, but who am I now? I'm someone who can stand toe-to-toe with them. She was also the one who had sent me messages on my phone that day, trying to win me back. After that, my life finally returned to peace, but deep down, I felt a faint sense of unease. Everyone else had already come to see me. Only Willow remained strangely quiet. Not only had she not come to find me, she hadn't even sent a single message. I knew the five of them must have talked to each other. Willow definitely knew she had been dragged into all of this unfairly. She was probably so angry that she didn't even want to bother with me anymore. I turned over and looked at the moon outside the window. Thinking about it, the only person I truly wronged was Willow. After all, during the time we were together, I had only been the more proactive one during the first month. After that, Willow treated me just like a real girlfriend would treat her boyfriend. George, eat some late-night snacks before going to sleep. David's voice came from outside the door. I sprang up like a carp flipping out of water and happily accepted the food my brother brought me. All my worries were instantly thrown to the back of my mind. The next morning, the doorbell rang early. It was the weekend, and I had finally been able to sleep in. My morning irritability kicked in. I messed up my hair and reluctantly went to open the door. David had already gone out early today to discuss a business deal, so it probably wasn't him. When I opened the door, a familiar beautiful face appeared before my eyes. I froze. How is it you? Chapter 17. Willow looked as if she had dressed up carefully. Her hair was specially styled. Her makeup was exquisite, and she wore a custom haute couture dress. She looked stunning. I stared for a second in admiration, then immediately swallowed my drool and looked away. Willow was holding something in her hand. Raising an eyebrow, she asked, "Aren't you going to invite me in?" I was silent for 2 seconds, then firmly shook my head. No. What if she was still furious and wanted to beat me up? At least outside there were security cameras. The security guards could see what was happening to me. Willow's eye twitched in irritation. In anger, she threw the thing in her hand onto the ground. All the calm persuasion she had prepared disappeared instantly. She grabbed me tightly and fiercely pressed her lips against mine. My eyes widened. What? How did this suddenly turn into a kiss? I opened my mouth, about to scold her, but she seized the chance and slipped in. When I felt her tongue enter my mouth, I was horrified. What the hell? This is disgusting. I shoved her away and spat repeatedly. What are you doing? That's disgusting. Willow's gaze darkened even more. She was breathing heavily with anger. George, you think I'm disgusting? She seemed unable to believe it. Her trembling finger pointed at me while her mouth kept firing off words. You heartless scumbag who played with people's feelings. You're the one who tricked my heart, and then you just walked away. All these days I didn't come looking for you, and you never even thought about looking for me. You lied to me for so long, and even wronged me by saying I liked someone else. Am I not allowed to feel upset? You didn't even try to comfort me. By the time she reached this point, her eyes had already turned red. A mist of tears blurred the eyes that were full of affection. I panicked instantly. I tried to step forward awkwardly, but she dodged me. I wanted to speak, but she refused to listen. Tears kept falling as she cried pitifully, telling me how miserable she was and how hateful I was. Only when she accused me, you tricked my heart and even took advantage of me, did I finally shout in protest. When did I ever take advantage of you? Unexpectedly, Willow cried even harder, looking at me like I was the most heartless man alive. She said, you didn't take advantage of me. Every day you rubbed against my chest, and when I was taking a shower, you even peeked through the crack in the door. MMPH. Chapter 18. Seeing the situation about to spiral out of control, I jumped up and covered her mouth tightly. Be quiet. Let's talk inside. Willow blinked, and 2 tears fell onto my hand. Ah, this is bad. I panicked even more, suddenly realizing the awkward position we were in. I tried to pull away, but Willow suddenly hugged me tightly and started walking forward step by step. Even reaching back to close the door, she maintained this position all the way to the sofa. I tried to break free, but she clung to me like a chain. More importantly, every time I struggled, she started crying again. Cry, cry, cry. I have no idea why she cries so much. I never noticed this before. In the end, her crying made my conscience ache. Finally, I shouted, what exactly do you want? Just say it. Willow's tears stopped instantly, like a faucet being turned off. You have to take responsibility for me. I love you. You must marry me. I was so shocked by what she said that it took me a moment to notice her strange choice of words. Wait, this was supposed to be a rich woman and her kept man. How did you end up falling in love with me? Willow's eyes were already red. Hearing that made her start crying again. Who said we were a rich woman and a kept man? You clearly said you were my boyfriend. You liar. You heartless man. What kind of karma did I accumulate to fall in love with someone like you? I was speechless. While Willow cried miserably beside me, I carefully recalled how I had first approached her. Now that I thought about it, I really hadn't said anything about being a patron and a kept man. But, I thought everyone just understood it by default. After all, that's how it was with Maria and the others. Could it be that from the very beginning, she thought we were actually in a real relationship? I glanced at the woman crying so hard she could barely breathe. Yep, that must be it. No wonder she kept asking me for a proper title and commitment. So in the end, I really was the heartless man. Once I figured that out, I felt even more guilty, seeing Willow, a domineering female CEO, reduced to this by my bullying. I reached out and touched my conscience. Good. It was still there. Chapter 19. Alright, I was wrong. Okay, I'll compensate you. What I meant was returning the money to her, but Willow clearly misunderstood. Her tears stopped instantly. Then when will you take me to meet my future brother-in-law? Out of respect for me, Willow had never investigated my family before. It was only after everything happened that she finally looked into it. After learning about my past, all her anger and resentment disappeared. Instead, she just felt that I was unbelievably kind, loyal, and capable. Not only did she stop hating me, she liked me even more. She even felt sorry that I had to deal with those awful women just for some money. Listening to Willow explain her emotional journey, I fell silent, a hopeless romantic, and somehow I ended up meeting one. I looked at her with mild disdain. Stop crying already. If you keep crying like this, all your good fortune will run out. Willow looked pitiful. My heart softened again. Sorry, I was wrong. When Willow immediately leaned in and kissed me again, my eyes went blank. Wait. I'm a grown man, and I'm actually being completely handled by a love-struck woman. I reflected on myself. I criticized myself. Meanwhile, deep inside, I felt ridiculously pleased. Clearing my throat, I returned to her earlier question. You want to meet David? The brother-in-law she mentioned could only be David. Willow planted another loud kiss on me before finally pulling back slightly, looking satisfied. I'll meet your brother. If your brother agrees, then we'll get married. I was stunned. How did we suddenly jump to marriage? Seeing that I didn't answer immediately, Willow became anxious. You don't agree. You've already seen everything, and you still won't take responsibility. She suddenly began wailing loudly. My head started aching. Just as I was about to tell her to be quiet, a shocked male voice suddenly came from the doorway. George? I turned around and saw David standing at the door, looking like his entire worldview had collapsed. Then I looked back at the position Willow and I were in. She was sitting on my lap, making the scene look extremely suspicious. Chapter 20. After that day, Willow spent an entire year working hard before finally obtaining David's approval. She transferred all the assets under her name to mine and even drafted a prenuptial agreement stating that if she ever cheated, she would leave the marriage with nothing. David was so pleased that he approved Willow's request to marry me. The two of them then unilaterally decided that the wedding would be held 1 month later. No one even asked for my opinion, the actual person getting married. I didn't dare get angry at David, so I grabbed Willow by the back of her neck instead. Who said I'm marrying you? Willow hissed in pain but still answered confidently. On the bed, MMPH. I quickly covered her mouth and awkwardly dragged her to a more private spot. This woman really has no filter. Is that something you can say out loud in public? Looking at Willow's indignant eyes, I sighed helplessly. Honestly, it was partly my fault for losing self-control. This woman is just too good at seducing people. I slipped up once, and now I'm completely trapped. Willow muttered stubbornly. Anyway, your brother already agreed. You have to take responsibility for me. I pushed her clingy face away and said impatiently. Yeah, I know. You're so annoying. Through the glass window, I could see David inside, seriously planning the details of my wedding. Looking at the two of them, I suddenly realized something. My smile had never once left my face.